All right, so welcome back to another one of these wonderful informative videos for our wonderful class. So, the topic of this video this week, if you didn't guess from the title, is the Command Line Interface, or CLI. Now, we have talked very briefly about how there are two different, basically, command lines. There's the old school one, which is the Command Line Interface, CLI, and there is PowerShell. We're not going to worry about PowerShell. We're going to be focused on the command line interface today. I just want to mention that. And for like tests and things, just make sure you're following the right one. If it says PowerShell or command line, make sure you use the proper tool. All right. So let's get this party started. Now, how I always launch the command line is I just hit the Windows key on my keyboard. I type CMD and I hit enter. And that basically always gets me to the command line interface. Now, the first thing that I want to point out, let's get Epic Pen started. All right, the first thing that I want to point out is where the command line interface actually started. And if we look right here, the file path where we are right now, which is c:/user/Greg Betts. All right, so it puts us in our home directory. That is the first thing that it does for us. Now, you may like the fact that it does that. You may hate the fact that it does that. However, that's where it goes. Now, I do want to point out, if you do that CMD on your start menu, but instead of hitting enter, you right click and say run as administrator, you will notice, I'll put this in the same circle, this one says c:/windows/system32. So, run as Windows administrator or as an administrator is basically giving you some extra functionality, a little bit of extra privileges and things like that, where Windows won't ask you questions or allow you to do more things. So that is something that you do need to think about when you are running this. Do you need those extra privileges? Oftentimes the answer is no, you do not. But you do want to make sure that you launch the correct command prompt depending on what you are trying to accomplish. For our purposes, we're going to stick with the non-administrator one. You will get in less trouble. There's less harm you can do to your computer if you're not in the administrator mode. And the command line interface, depending on what commands you're entering, that can harm your computer pretty good, all right? The command line interface is kind of like the old school way of doing things. This is how we used to do it. This is all you used to have. You didn't have the nice graphical user interface or the GUI. All you had was a command line. That was it. And that's a very powerful tool to have. It gives you very specific access to do all sorts of wonderful things, all right? Just to start, the first thing I want to talk about is the help command. All right, so if you just type help out, H-E-L-P, and hit enter, it will list basically every command that is part of the command line interface from the get-go. All right, now at the very top, this is a very important piece. For more information on a specific command, type help, then the command line, or the command name. All right. And this is called the syntax. So when you're using the command line, or any terminal for that matter, PowerShell is going to be the same way. You have to make sure you have the proper syntax. And what syntax is, for those who don't know, is an arrangement of words and phrases. All right. So it's specifically how you type things out. So we can get into some pains here. All right. You're going to be like, okay, I know the command I want to do. And let's see, here's the one I want listed. So this isn't actually a complete list. This is just kind of like the starting list, I guess, looking at it now, because it is missing some very useful commands. One of those being ipconfig, and that will list out all of the internet connection information for your computer. I don't want to do that because I don't want you guys seeing my IP address and all other fun information. But ipconfig, very powerful tool on the wrong one, and it will just spit out tons and tons and tons and tons of information about your computer. However, let us start with one that is a little bit less, what I'm going to call deadly, all right? And that will be the DIR command, D-I-R. So go ahead and D-I-R. This is going to stand for directory. And what this is going to do is it's going to list out the contents of your directory that you are currently in. So in this case, c:/user/Greg Betts. In fact, I'm going to do help first, so help dir, and that way it tells me all the information that I would ever probably want to know about this command. It tells me what it does. It spells a list of files and subdirectories in a directory, so that's good. It tells us the command dir, then it says drive, path, file name. So what this is telling you is if you want to pick a different location than you are, you could do that, all right? Then you can give it some attributes, and then you can give it some sorting, and all sorts of other crazy things. So this, to me, well, let me get this out again. All of this right here, to me, is very scary, because you're like, oh my god, I have to do all of that, or I have to remember all of this, or type it all out, or what's going on with all that. Yeah, I don't blame you if you think that's a little kind of overwhelming. However, we don't need to start there. All right, so we can start with just typing out dir. Oh, there was a few more. DIR, and it will just list everything that you have associated with your directory you're in currently. So you can see I have a whole bunch of directories. Those are what this column is. I have very few files. I only have 2 right in there. I have a MQTFX installer and a profile for 3D printing related stuff. However, if we wanted to do a change and look at a specific folder, I could just do dir c:, and that lists the C, it should list the C directory, which it did not. It has no label. Alright, let's try that again. dir c:, and let's throw the slash in there this time. There we go. Put the slash in it, and now it's showing me the C drive. Alright, so very important information. Lots of good use here. It tells you what files there are. You can sort it. You can. Oh, it's absolutely amazing what you can do with this. I'm not going to go down super deep into any specific command. I just kind of want to go through some different options here. Now, another command that you might use might be md. And again, let's go ahead and do help md. Hit enter. And that's going to say it creates a directory. You could also use mkdir, and it's drive::path, drive::path. Alright, so it tells you, here's a nice little example, make dir /a/b/c/d, and it's the same as writing all of that out. So basically it's going to make the directory A, then it's going to go to that directory, then we're going to make B, then we're going to go to that directory, then we're going to make C, then we're going to go to that directory, then we're going to make D. Alright, so if I just type a md command out, you're going to notice that it says syntax error. So it's, man, that got really big. Not what I want. That's fine. Alright, it's going to tell us that the syntax of the command is incorrect. Not this isn't a valid command. If you don't type something that is a valid command, so if I just type out like blah blah blah, it's going to, that is not recognized an internal or external command. So that is a very important point. Syntax versus not a command. So syntax is wrong, that just means we're missing something. Alright? And in this case, the syntax of this requires us to have a file or a folder name that we want to create. So if I go ahead and I'm going to do my dir, and this time we're going to change to that directory. So we're going to go to downloads. I shouldn't have a lot of folders there. Ooh, that's still going to be a lot. We're going to go to links. Alright, so we're going to use the cd command. And again, if I just do cd, it just puts me in that same folder. If I do cd links, another key thing here is you can use the tab button. So I just typed out cdl, and if I hit tab, it puts links in. So it goes, alright, you probably mean this. And it's pseudo being smart about that. It basically says, okay, what in this folder has an L in it as the first letter. And from that point, it says, oh, links does, so it shows you that. Now, if you did something that had more, so if I did D, I hit tab, it does desktop. Well, I don't want my desktop. I really wanted documents. Well, if you hit tab again, it goes to documents. If we do it again, it goes to downloads, and then it just flips between those 3. So we'll just jump down from file to file to file to file to file, which is nice. Now, if we use the M command, right, I have a file and I have a folder. But since this is the CD command, oh, I don't even know where that's taking me. Microsoft Edge, that's interesting. I don't even see that as a list option here. There, but now it's going to music, and now it's going to my documents, it's quotes, and so it's jumping between those 3. It ignores the MQTT file because, well, this is saying change directory, and it's saying, okay, we're looking for a file. So I'm going to go to that links, we're going to do a dir in there to see what's listed, which overall, not much, which is good, alright. So now we're going to make a new directory in here, so we're going to do md, and I'm just going to call it test. And it looks like probably nothing happens, but if I do that dir command again, you'll now see I have a test directory. So that syntax is very important in the long run. All right. Now, let's say you do type something out. So I'm going to type out time. We're going to get ourselves into a little bit of trouble here. I'm going to remove RD. I'm going to remove that file, that folder, because I don't need it. I'm going to go ahead and type out time. And it says the current time is, and it says enter the new time. Now at this point you're going, oh crap, I don't want to change anything. What do I do? Like, do I exit the terminal? What's going on? And yeah, you could exit the command prompt. Sorry, I just called it a terminal. You could exit the command prompt. That would be fine. All right, you could just exit out and it just acts like the command never happened. However, you can also use Control plus the C button. And that basically exits out of whatever command you are in the middle of. So that will save you in a pinch when you get yourself in a little bit of trouble. So Windows command prompt isn't just going to show you the commands that Windows has built in. All right, programs can add their own commands to that list. So as part of the installation, that is, they can't just be like, oh yeah, we're just going to put this on there. No, there's a process to this. All right, you have to do some little magic to it. So one of the things you can, on my computer at least, that is added has been Python. So if I type out Python and I hit enter, it takes me into a Python command line interface now, and that is denoted by the fact that it's three little greater than signs, less than signs, whatever you want to call them. Notice it doesn't say C colon right here anymore. It says Python. So if I say 2 plus 2 and I hit enter, it tells me 4. All right, and that lets me know that I'm in that Python environment. Control Z and enter gets me out of that. Now if I do 2 plus 2, it just says that's not recognized. All right, so this is a difference of the command line, the Python command line interface versus the Windows command line interface. So those types of things could get added. Another one that I have is ADB, from when I have messed around with old cell phones and tablets and modified them and what I'm going to call is improved them. All right, so that type of command gets added. Now we can add that in, or we can show a list of them by go ahead and typing out path, P-A-T-H, and hitting enter. And that shows you a list of where a lot of the programs that's looking. So in my case, you've got some Rockwell software for some of my PLC stuff. I got Windows, which is kind of the standard. I've got the PowerShell stuff. It's actually looking at PuTTY, which is my SSH related things, Autodesk. The list kind of goes on and on and on. So it's looking in very specific locations for certain things. And again, that's a very useful thing to be able to say, hey, go look in these locations for more commands that we may actually be wanting to use. All right. So, command line interface, really powerful tool. PowerShell is replacing it, or is slowly replacing. This isn't a night and day transition. This is something that's going to take years of Windows slowly fading it out and removing access, because companies and IT people and whatnot have created what's called a BAT file, or .bat, to automate this process some. So if you're like, often I need to do this, and one of those things I did at my last job was IP address changing. I went from accept a DHCP to a static IP. So I said, all right, I want to be able to go from the router giving me an IP address to me saying I want this specific IP address. And I created 2 BAT files, one that went one direction, one that went the other. And whenever I was in my PLC class and I needed to change it up, I could just go ahead and run one file instead of having to go navigate the 12 billion folder structures to get there. So it becomes a very powerful tool when you start automating things like that. And it can be the little things, like I said, changing an IP address, or maybe changing your background if you have a very specific something you like, or creating alarms or programs that run at certain times or things like that. You can automate so much with the command line interface, but you do need to be careful, because if you screw up, if you say RD instead of MD, you're going to remove a directory instead of making one. Or if you say copy instead of move, or move instead of copy, those types of things. That'll get you in trouble, because you thought you were backing up your files. What you were actually doing were you were moving them to a different location. And then maybe you delete that backup location every week so you can create it again. You just need to be careful with this, because this is super powerful. All right, that's all I've got for the command line interface. If you have any questions, let me know.